In this video, I'm going to teach you 10 verb-noun collocations that you'll find particularly useful if you're planning on taking a Cambridge English exam. But even if you're not planning on taking any kind of English exam, you'll find these collocations useful because, as I always say, vocabulary is vocabulary, right? The words and phrases that you learn during your preparation for an exam will be useful for you even after you've passed the exam and got the certificate, because it's vocabulary that is used in the real world too. So quickly before we start, I'll just explain what a collocation is. A collocation is a pair or a group of words that often or frequently go together. And this is really the best way to learn vocabulary, especially at a higher level, to learn vocabulary in chunks, because it's very common in English and in most languages that there are certain words that go together, that just commonly go together, like phrasal verbs, fixed expressions, idioms, and collocations. And I'm planning on making more videos teaching vocabulary in that way, teaching chunks of vocabulary, not just individual words. By the way, I think I need to get a new plant, right, for the background of my videos. That one's looking a little bit worse for wear. Maybe I'll bring the bonsai tree back. Okay, let's get straight down to it then. The first collocation I have for you is wield influence, to wield influence. And this means to have or exert power or control over someone or something. Now, before I give the example, I just want to explain the verb wield, the literal meaning of the word wield, because in this collocations it's used in a figurative way. But to wield means to hold and use a weapon. So usually a sword or some kind of weapon that you hold in your hands, of course. When we use it in this collocation, to wield influence, it's like using influence as a weapon. So keep that in mind when I give the examples. And the first example is, in my opinion, social media celebrities wield too much influence over young people nowadays. This is negative, of course. These social media celebrities, influencers themselves, are using their influence in a negative way. They're wielding their influence, so they're exerting their power on young people. Another example, the Prime Minister wields considerable influence in the European Union meetings. So again, we're saying here that the Prime Minister exerts this power or control, perhaps more than other members in the European Union meetings. So a really useful collocation, to wield influence. And the next one, to shoulder responsibility. So to shoulder, this is the shoulder, the part of the body. Again, that will help you understand the meaning, sort of the literal meaning of shoulder, but in this case it's being used as a verb, to shoulder. But this means to accept or to take the blame or responsibility. Okay, so if you think if it's on your shoulders, right, it's your responsibility. So let's look at an example. It seems that no one is prepared to shoulder the responsibility for the potential impact of AI. Okay, so no one is prepared to shoulder the responsibility, so to take the responsibility, to take the blame. I mean, if there are negative impacts of AI in the future, but that's the feeling I get, right? Do you? I mean, all these geniuses who created and have helped develop AI are now saying, well, we don't know what's going to happen. We can't help. So, you know, who shoulders the responsibility? Who's going to take the blame? Probably no one in the end. And the next verb-noun collocation is to pose a threat. And this means to present a danger or risk. So something, or perhaps someone, that presents a danger or a risk. So the example will help you understand this. Cyber attacks pose a serious threat to national security. Right, so that's a pretty typical example these days. So cyber attacks are becoming more and more common, I think. But they pose a serious threat, so they present a danger or a risk. Another example, to make sure you've got this one. Climate change poses a threat to biodiversity, putting many species at risk. So those of you who've been watching my videos for a while will know that I always try to include a climate change example, because climate change has, over the years, come up a lot in Cambridge English exams. I think artificial intelligence is going to maybe overtake climate change as the most common topic in Cambridge English exams. It's coming up a lot, so I recommend you read lots of articles about artificial intelligence, social media, climate change, those kinds of topics when you're preparing for your exam. And the next one is to swallow your pride, or to swallow one's pride. And this means to do something even though it makes you feel embarrassed or ashamed. So to swallow, the verb to swallow is this. When you drink liquid or eat food, you have to swallow it, right? For it to go down your throat. So to swallow your pride, it's like, you can imagine, right? When you have to do something you really don't want to do and it's going to make you feel embarrassed or ashamed, you're preparing yourself, you're swallowing. So that's the idea. So the example, sometimes at work, we need to swallow our pride and ask for help. So some people are very proud at work, they think they can do everything, they don't need any help from anyone. But sometimes there are moments where you do need help, so you need to swallow your pride. Maybe you'll feel a bit embarrassed asking someone to help you with your work, but sometimes it's necessary, so swallow your pride. One more example. Cristiano swallowed his pride and congratulated Leo on the win. Just some random names there, Cristiano and Leo. I'm not talking about anyone in particular, but perhaps Leo, let's say football, I don't know why, but let's say in a football match, Leo was on the winning team and Cristiano was a bit embarrassed or ashamed, but he had to go, and we didn't have to, but he went to congratulate Leo on the win. So he swallowed his pride and did the right thing. And the next verb noun collocation is to convey a message. And this means to express or communicate an idea, a feeling, or maybe information so that it is understood. Okay, so the fact that it's understood, that you're trying to make sure that the person who is listening or perhaps reading understands the message, the idea, the feeling, or the information that you're trying to communicate or express. Okay, the example. Although it's written for children, the book conveys a deeper message that adults can appreciate. So thinking of the Cambridge English exams, this could perhaps be a book review. So the writer here is expressing the idea that, this book is for children, but it also conveys, so it's expressing or communicating an idea that can be appreciated by adults. So again, it's that idea that it's trying to be understood. Okay, the next collocation is to arouse suspicion. Now the verb arouse means to cause someone to feel something. It's like to awaken a feeling. So in this case, the feeling is suspicion, to arouse suspicion, and it's a very common collocation. So this means to do something to make someone believe that you've done something bad. So it could be something unethical or potentially even criminal. So if you arouse suspicion, then you're doing something suspicious, basically. So it awakens or causes someone to be suspicious. Okay, the example. The employee's inconsistent explanations for taking regular sick days aroused HR's suspicion. Okay, so HR here, of course, is human resources. So this employee is constantly giving these excuses, these strange excuses which are inconsistent. And HR, the people in HR, are getting suspicious. This behavior is causing HR to be suspicious, to feel suspicious. So to arouse suspicion. And the next one is to cast a shadow. And we would use the preposition to cast a shadow over something. So over would be the preposition we use in the context that I'm going to explain. Now, I should explain first that to cast a shadow literally just means to project a shadow. So when you have light, a light source, an object always projects a shadow, right? A tree projects a shadow from the light of the sun. But in a more figurative and more common, probably, use of cast a shadow over something, it's slightly different. But that literal meaning will help you understand the figurative meaning. And that's to make a good situation worse or sort of less enjoyable or less pleasant. Okay, again, the example will help you really understand this collocation. We mustn't let the recent drop in profits cast a shadow over an otherwise successful financial year. Okay, so a very boring business example there, but useful, I think. Boring can be useful at the same time. So again, to cast a shadow, so creating, the financial year has been good, it's been positive, but this recent drop in profits, we don't want it to cast a shadow over a successful year. So let's try to avoid that. We don't want anything to spoil the good news of, generally overall a positive financial year. One more example. The striker's horrific injury cast a shadow over the team's celebrations. The team in this case won the match, or maybe they won the league or a cup. So they're all celebrating, they're very happy, but the striker, their teammate, suffered a horrific injury. So that negative news cast a shadow, so it it created a bad feeling over an otherwise very positive situation, right? They're celebrating a win. Okay, the next idiom is to voice concerns. So using voice as a verb here, and this means to express worries or doubts about something. Not necessarily verbally, although we're using the verb to voice. It could be in written form too, but it's just about expressing worries or doubts about something. So the example, local residents have voiced concerns regarding the proposed expansion of the airport. Local residents are worried, they're concerned, they have their doubts about the expansion of the airport. Probably mean more aeroplanes, more pollution, more noise pollution too. So they're expressing their concerns, perhaps in a written letter to their local MP, or perhaps vocally, who knows. But they are voicing their concerns, they're expressing their worries. And the next collocation is to pay tribute to someone or something. So pay is quite a common verb, but with tribute it has a specific meaning. And that is to praise or honor someone for their achievements or in their memory. Okay, so often it's just to praise someone who has achieved something. They've done something admirable or something great. But sometimes it may just be praising or honoring someone who has died. It may be in their memory because they've passed away. Okay, so let's look at an example. The film pays tribute to the people who fought for their freedom during the struggles. So in this case, again, thinking of a review, a film review that you may have to write for your Cambridge English exam, or maybe in another situation. But yeah, so the film pays tribute, so it honors or praises the people who fought for their freedom. Okay, before I look at the last idiom, which is a particularly curious one, by the way, if you are planning on taking a Cambridge English exam, either the B2 First, C1 Advanced, or C2 Proficiency, I have my complete online preparation courses which will help you with every part and every aspect of the preparation for these big exams, and they'll help you get the best score possible. I also have a grammar course which you'll find on the same website, which I'll share in the link in the description to this video. Okay, the last collocation, the last verb noun collocation is to nurse an illness. To nurse an illness. So to nurse is being used as a verb here, of course. We usually say to nurse a cold or perhaps a hangover, depending on the context. You can nurse other things. You can nurse a sore back, for example, nurse a headache, nurse a flu, nurse COVID nowadays. And the meaning is to look after or to rest when you have this illness. So if you're nursing a cold or a hangover, then you're taking care of yourself and resting while you're recovering. So a couple of examples. When I'm nursing a bad cold, I prefer to stay in bed watching series all day. Okay, so when I'm nursing a bad cold and I'm looking after myself and resting, I don't want to do anything. I just want to stay in bed watching series all day. Is that what you like to do when you're nursing a cold? And what about if you're nursing a hangover? My excuse that I wouldn't be able to take the C1 Advanced exam because I was nursing a terrible hangover wasn't accepted by the exam center. Yeah, that's not a good excuse. If you are in that situation, don't say that. Come up with another excuse, but don't be too honest. Sometimes honesty is not the best policy. Okay, did you know some of those collocations, or were they all new to you? Well, don't forget, use it or lose it when it comes to vocabulary. If you just watch a video and then forget about the vocabulary, you're not likely to remember it. So come up with your own examples and practice these collocations to make sure you really internalize them. Okay, thank you for joining me again, and I'll see you very soon for another video.